Imagine traveling to almost any country in the world and asking people about football. They'll think of a round ball, 2 goals, and 22 players running across a field. Now, ask the same question in America, and suddenly, football becomes a completely different sport. So here's the weird part. The country that calls football soccer gets mocked for it all the time. But what if America didn't actually invent the word soccer? What if the people who complain about it today were the ones who created it in the first place? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why Americans call it soccer, who invented the word, and why one of the biggest arguments in sports history is based on a misunderstanding. Let's start with something surprising. Football and soccer were originally the same thing. Back in the 1800s, there were dozens of different football games being played across Britain. Every school seemed to have its own version. Some allowed carrying the ball, some didn't. Some were incredibly rough, others focused mostly on kicking. It was complete chaos. Imagine if every basketball court in America had different rules. That's basically what football looked like. So eventually, people decided they needed a standard set of rules. In 1863, a group of clubs met in London and created what became known as association football. The word association was important because it separated this version from other football games, including the game that would later become rugby football. And this is where the story gets interesting. British university students loved creating slang words. They shortened words and added funny endings. For example, rugby football became rugger, and association football became soccer. Yes, the word soccer was invented in Britain, not America. Let that sink in for a second. The word Americans use today was originally British slang. So if Britain invented the word, why doesn't Britain use it anymore? That's where things take another twist. As football became more popular around the world, the shorter name football gradually won out. Most countries only had one dominant football game, so there was no need to distinguish between different versions. If someone said football, everyone knew exactly what they meant. But America had a different problem. Another sport was becoming incredibly popular: American football. The sport with helmets, touchdowns, quarterbacks, and massive collisions. And because American football became one of the country's biggest sports, the word football was already taken. Imagine opening a restaurant called Apple in a city where Apple already exists. It's going to create confusion. The same thing happened with football. Americans needed a way to distinguish between the two sports, so they kept using the older British term soccer, and that's why the name stuck. What's funny is that many people assume Americans changed the name because they disliked football, but that's not what happened. They simply continued using a word Britain had already created. In fact, for decades, even British newspapers regularly used the word soccer. Here's another surprising fact. Until relatively recently, soccer wasn't considered unusual in Britain at all. Many players, coaches, and journalists used the term without controversy. The backlash only grew later as football became more globally dominant. Today, hearing the word soccer in many countries feels strange because football is already the universally accepted name, but historically, it was completely normal. Now, let's look at something even more fascinating. Why does this argument make people so emotional? After all, it's just a word. The answer has a lot to do with identity. Sports are deeply connected to culture. For many fans around the world, football isn't just a game. It's family traditions, national pride, childhood memories, community. So when someone calls it soccer, it can feel like they're talking about a different version of something important. Meanwhile, Americans grow up with a sport literally called football. To them, saying football naturally means the NFL, college football, touchdowns, and Super Bowls. Neither side is really wrong. They're simply using the word that makes sense in their culture. Think about it this way. People in different countries call the same food by different names. Some say fries, others say chips, some say soda, others say soft drink. The object stays the same, only the label changes. Football and soccer work exactly the same way. And here's something especially important. With the FIFA World Cup approaching, millions of Americans are becoming interested in the sport for the first time. Many of them will call it soccer. Many international fans will call it football. But they'll all be watching the same matches, cheering for the same goals, and feeling the same emotions. Because at the end of the day, the name isn't what makes the sport special. The game itself does. So the next time someone says Americans ruined the word football, remember this: the word soccer wasn't invented in America. It was invented in Britain. America simply kept using it while much of the rest of the world moved towards football. And that's why one sport ended up with two different names. A simple piece of history created one of the most famous debates in sports. The funny part is, both sides are technically right, and both sides are technically wrong. They're just using different chapters of the same story. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe, because football, or soccer, is full of surprising stories like this, and we've only just scratched the surface.